Good morning, everyone. Well, good afternoon and good evening to you. Here in Madison, Wisconsin in the United States, it is 7 o'clock in the morning. So I am so excited to have gotten up early with all of you to be here today. I'm beyond ecstatic. So one of the things that Maureen mentioned is that I'm working with CU Difference. And just so you all are aware, CU Difference is the company that our friends Lois Kitch and Mark Lynch started several years ago. And you know Lois very well. She also did your first webinar for you 2 weeks ago, and Mark did the webinar last week. So you have the whole CU Difference team coming to you, which I think is very exciting as well. I first met Lois in 2003 when she was my mentor at the DE program. So it was the best class ever. I'm going to see if I can share my web. There I am. Hi, everyone. Thought I had it shared and then it wasn't showing up. So yes, it was the best class ever in 2003. And if you've been through the Credit Union Development Educator Program, you know that you've also had the best class ever. I'm going to give a shout out to Maureen because she was one of my mentees very recently when I went through the program with her. I was her mentor. And also, George Umbado, I met through DE, and George Ototo was in a class that I mentored. So hopefully they're on the line as well, and Mama Sally. So that's all for my shout outs for today. So let's dive right in and let's see what we're going to talk about today. So today is all about how do we best connect with our members? How do we help our staff understand what it is that they need to do differently in order to have the best member experience? And it's about figuring out what the skills are that our staff needs to connect with our members, and then creating consistency. So it's not just one staff person that I'm always going to go to Mama Sally because I know she has the biggest smile and the biggest heart and she'll do anything for me. I want to make sure that every one of my staff is treating all of our members with love and care and grace and doing what needs to happen in order to create that best experience and really elevate our service throughout the credit union and make sure that we have the best culture for our members that we can possibly have. So on the next slide, you're going to see my version of culture. And we talked about sales and service cultures here in the US for years. That's been an ongoing thing. I think culture is kind of a strange word because this is, you know, I think of opera. Gosh, I just sang for you on this webinar. I can't believe I did that. And it wasn't even good. I like to laugh. I hope you do too. I will be laughing at myself. I hope you are laughing where you are. So is this what we mean by the culture of your SACO? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. So what do we mean by the culture of your SACO? Who defines it? Who creates it? How do you change it? Culture is something that no one else can steal from you. It's always part of you, and yet we don't really know how to create it and how to change it. So let's start looking at that a little bit on the next slide. Whatever you do, whatever actions you take, however you talk to your staff, however your staff talks to your members, however you talk to your members, that's all to support your SACO's mission, right? And your mission has to support your members. So it may feel to you like you are at the base of this old-fashioned, old-timey pyramid that's going on here. That person has the most weight on their shoulders, literally has the most weight on their shoulders of anyone within the SACO. And yet we have to know that everyone around us is also supporting us. They're leaning on us, but they're also supporting us because everything we do is about that mission and creating that best experience. So everything you do as a member is supporting your team, but it's also supporting that culture. So it's a heavy burden, and we're going to talk about how to make that burden a little lighter and to maybe shift some of that weight off of your back so that that person that's in the very front who's just smiling on our little pyramid here, that she's actually got just as much of the responsibility for the mission as you do. So let's take a look at that next slide. Let's break this down into the components. When we talk about culture, we talk about the member experience and we talk about the employee experience. That makes up our culture, and I don't want to get ahead of myself. So when we're breaking this down into parts, the member experience is at the core of everything that we're doing. So how do we define that? What do I mean when I say the member experience? What elements makes up that member experience, and who creates the member experience? Now, I know you have an opportunity to chat and you can share comments with Maureen, and you can share them with me as well. So if I ask questions along the way, please feel free to jump in and ask additional questions or to give a shout out if you know the answers to these things already. Hopefully you've got something to write on and you can take a note. So in the chat, on a piece of paper, on a sticky note, take a moment and list everything that you can think of that goes into that member experience. Think about a member comes to your SACO. They may walk, they may drive, they may ride a bike. However they're coming to your SACO, what do they see? What do they experience with the outside of your building? Then they open the front door. What do they see? What do they experience? Then they walk up to a teller line or they walk to a member service rep. So think about to yourself and write this down. What are all those touch points that your member has at your SACO? I'll be quiet for just a moment to give you a chance to make some notes. So consider this. There's a lot that goes into the member experience. I barely gave you any time at all to think about what that might mean. But consider this. If someone enters your parking lot and there's trash all over the place, what kind of a member experience is that? I used to work in an office that was in a residential area. It was the only office building amongst a bunch of houses. And one day, a newspaper had blown from someone's front porch into our parking lot. And I got to the office early. I was always an early riser. And I walked into the parking lot, or I drove into the parking lot, and there was newspaper everywhere. And it was where people were going to be parking in just a short period of time. So I got out of my car. I parked far away so I wasn't parking on any of the newspapers. And I started picking up the newspapers. Because to me, that was the first impression that people would have. As my coworkers got to work that day, they said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, can't you see there's garbage everywhere? I need to clean this up. Can you help me?" And person after person said to me, "It's not my job. That's Chris's job. Chris is in charge of maintenance." And I said, "What time does Chris get here every day?" They said 9:30. It was 8 o'clock in the morning when I was doing this. Chris wasn't going to be there for another hour and a half. Meanwhile, people would be coming and going. People would be seeing the trash all over the parking lot. So I stayed out there as long as I needed to because I really felt like I had a responsibility to make it a good experience. And it made me sad that no one else felt that way. So think about that for your staff. Think about that for you and your team. Is there something that's very obvious to you that maybe you can't have that beginner's eye anymore because you've seen it just so much? Maybe there is a stain on the carpet. Maybe there is a crack in the ceiling, something that you forget about because you see it every day. Well, your members don't. Your members don't. And here's the thing, your member experience will drive how much trust they have for you and your SACO. Now, you would think that your financial stability would really drive the trust that they have for you, but the experience is more than whether or not you've got financial stability. They can't see your books. They don't know how solvent you are. They don't know if you're struggling or if you're doing very well. And that shouldn't really be their concern. Their concern is what's in front of them. So it's going to affect whether they come to you next time, whether they talk to their family and friends about you, and they say, this SACO is clean, it's bright, it's welcoming, and I trust the staff to do what's right for me. It all plays into that member experience. The other thing to consider is some of the things that Mark shared last week, if you were on the session last week, or maybe you've had a chance to listen to it since. Are your members only hearing from you when they're having financial difficulties and you're reaching out to them to collect money from them? Is that the only time they're hearing from you? Or do you have staff assigned to reach out to say, I haven't heard from you in a while. I want to make sure you're okay. How can the SACO help you? So if you care about your members, how are you showing it? And more importantly, how are your members caring about you? Because if you create that trust, they're going to feel like the very first bill, the primary bill that I need to pay is to pay back a loan to my SACO. All right, let's move forward. I could talk about this for too long, evidently. All right, the employee experience. We don't hear very much about the employee experience. We hear a lot about the members and how the members feel about us, but how do our employees feel about us? The employee experience is just turn around that member experience. What exactly are your employees experiencing when they come to the office every day? When they come to the SACO, are they seeing a bright, clean, welcoming space? Are they seeing a place that needs a little love that could benefit maybe from a coat of paint? Are they proud to come to work at the SACO every day? One of the things that we need to consider is whether our staff feels like this is a career for them, or is this a job for them? Now, wouldn't you rather have someone who has the people helping people philosophy at their heart, and that feels like serving the membership is their number one and only priority for the day, and making sure that members are getting the best experience possible? They can't have that feeling unless you are creating a positive experience for them. Who creates the employee experience? You do, my friends, as managers. You do as leaders. And you create it for each other too. If there are other managers, if there are staff on the line, you're creating it for your coworkers as well. Because if you come to work every day and you've got a little chip on your shoulder because something happened at home, you need to shake that off and you need to put on a face of, I am here to serve the member and I am here to be the best colleague that I can possibly be. So one of the things that you can do as a homework assignment or a takeaway is, just like we made a list of all of the elements that go into the member experience, do the same thing for the staff experience. Walk through your SACO building with fresh eyes. Walk through as if it's the first day of work for a new staff member, a new employee, and think about what are the things that they're seeing. Is it easy for them to make a report when they see something that's not right? A child came in and spilled some juice or something on the carpet. Does staff know who to call and who to reach out to make sure that that's cleaned up right away? Or do they have the permission to be able to take some time off the line and do that themselves? So there's a saying that says, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. I don't know if you've heard that before, but let me say that if your employees aren't happy, there's no way your members are going to be happy. So if your staff ain't happy, your members ain't happy. You can say that you heard that here first, I guess. I don't know. Maureen, let's keep going. So there is an overlap between that member experience and the employee experience. That squiggle line is what we call a critical contact point. And that's where we hope that everything that you've done to create that positive employee experience will reflect with that member experience and will rub off on the member as a positive experience. This is where, however you coach your staff, however you talk to your staff, however you ask them to work with the members, this is where it comes through. I had an experience at my credit union. I sold a house at a time when it was very, very difficult to sell homes in the United States. It was 2008, 2009 when everybody was really hurting financially. And I finally had sold my home. It had been on the market for a year, almost a year and a half. And that was unheard of at the time. So I very excitedly went to my credit union and I asked them if they had anything, a rate sheet or something that I could take with me so that I could consider my options. And the teller said to me, you're going to have to go online to get that information because we're a green branch, so we don't hand out paper anymore. And if I was going to give you the rates, I'd have to do that anyway. So you're just going to have to go online. My guess is that her manager and someone along the line said to her, we're not going to do rate sheets anymore. This is a green branch. We're energy efficient. We're doing all the right things for the environment. Well, are you doing the right things for the member? Because I walked into that branch thinking, I am so excited. I finally sold my house. I want to work with my credit union to make sure that I get the best rate and the best new home loan possible. And I walked out thinking, she doesn't get me. She doesn't understand. So the convergence of what the branch manager said and what the employee heard and how that's translated to the member becomes that critical contact point. So let's keep going. I hinted at this earlier. When you put those two experiences together, the member experience and the employee experience, that's what makes up your culture. So how do you change the culture in your credit union, in your SACO? If you feel like something's not right, if you feel like you're not creating the best member experience you can, what do we do? What do we change? You drive the employee experience, the employee drives the member experience. So you, with the employees, you are the ones that are creating the culture in the SACO. If you want to change the culture, it is up to you to work with your staff to make sure that it becomes a member-focused culture, that it becomes a positive culture, that it becomes a place where people want to come back. So a positive member experience equals a positive growth for your SACO. You change that employee experience and you change the culture. So let's look at what is the most important thing to our members. On the next slide, you're going to see 4 items. This is based on some research that was done by the Forum Corporation. There are 4 things that our members are looking for from us, and this is universal. This is everywhere. First of all is reliability. You've got to earn my trust. Reliability, if you think about what that means, it's all the basics. It's you open on time every day when you say you're going to, and you're staffed adequately when you say you're going to have people available in your SACO to wait on the members. You provide accurate transactions as much as possible. Mistakes happen, but for the most part, I'm reliable because I provide an accurate transaction. And then you have respectful staff who know what they're doing. When you have those three elements, you have reliability of when you're going to open, you have accurate transactions, and you have staff that care about what they're doing and know what they're doing. That all forms reliability, and that's how you build trust. Again, it's not about how financially secure you are, because the members don't really know. And the members, I mean, the members care about that, but they care more about me, myself. I care about how I'm going to interact with the SACO. Empathy, the second one, demonstrating that you care. If you have been through the DE program, you most likely have talked about empathy. I'm not going to make any assumptions about how many people have or haven't been through DE, but really what it means is that you are consistently showing, demonstrating that you care about every single member situation. Right now, that is more critical than ever, and it's probably more difficult than ever, because you may have 4 members in a row that come to your SACO almost in tears saying, there's no way I can repay my loan. When you lead with empathy, when someone says there's no way I can repay my loan, empathy means you say back to them, that must be so difficult for you. Let's talk about how your SACO can help. As simple as that. And then you can go on to solve their problems. And then you can go on to talk about what is it that we need to do to get you back on your feet. Is it extending the terms of the loan? Is it making sure that you make the SACO a priority so that we can continue to help you in the future? Those are all the things that Lois talked about in that first session as well, and that Mark talked about in the second session about how to coach and counsel your members on their financial side. But it all starts with empathy. It all starts with saying, it sounds difficult. Where you are right now sounds very difficult. And how can your SACO be here to help? That's what it's about. Assurance means that you understand my situation. It goes hand in hand with empathy. If your staff can only process basic transactions, they're not going to be instilling the confidence in your members to deepen that financial relationship with you. And then responsiveness. Responsiveness seems very easy as well. It seems like it's as simple as, do I answer the phone, and how many rings do I answer the phone in? How long does it take me to respond to an email? But really, responsiveness is, are you truly listening? Are you truly hearing what my situation is? And are you responding in a way that makes me feel like this SACO cares about me as a member? Are you offering ideas to help me? Or are you just processing that transaction and getting me out of the door? Every member is going to give you cues about how they need help and what their financial goals are. So that's what we're going to really dive into next. This first bullet always makes me smile, because when we have to look at the member experience, there are really 3 reasons why a member will come to see us at our SACO. Only 3. It feels like every member has a story and every member has something different that they need, which is true, but it all boils down to just those 3 elements. Number 1, they may have a transaction with you. Number 2, it's a new member or a new service that an existing member is asking you for. And number 3, they have a problem that they need you to help them with. Those are really the only 3 reasons that anybody comes into our SACO. And when you can break it down into that basic of a level, it makes it a little easier to define what are the staff behaviors that are going to create value based on role. What are the skills they need to have? What are the processes they need to follow? And what are the strategies they can employ most successful and create that member experience that really is going to make a difference, and that's going to give them the positive member experience. So let's keep going, Maureen. So when we're talking about skills, processes, and strategies, the staff needs to know what they need to do, what's expected of them to create that positive member experience. They need to know what behaviors can they do that's going to impact an outcome of any of your members, and then how to change that behavior. So if they had a member come in and it turned into some kind of a shouting match, or if it turned into somebody crying, whether it was the member or whether it was your staff person, that's not a good outcome. That's not the outcome we want. We want our members to leave the SACO feeling like they're a happy family, right? They are part of our family. So staff needs to be able to say, what did I do well to create a happy member? And what should I do differently next time to make sure that the next member is even happier? Manager's role all along the way is to provide that specific and timely feedback, to be able to listen to enough of the transactions and enough of the interactions that staff are having with the members to be able to say, I overheard that transaction and I felt like you did a really fantastic job empathizing with that member's situation. It is very difficult to be in that situation, and you listened and you took the time so that member truly understands that we care about them and that their SACO is going to be there for them. That would be a fantastic conversation to have with your staff. It really, truly would be. It doesn't have to be anything deeper than that. All right, so I love this picture. When you go into a restaurant, think about this for yourself. How long do you expect to wait to receive service? In this case, someone was very upset. They literally took the ketchup and mustard, the only thing that were available to them, and they wrote a little message to their server saying, we waited 30 minutes and we didn't get service. So he left you a little love note. And I like looking in the upper left-hand corner, you can see someone else has food, someone else got service, so it's not like the kitchen is on fire and nobody can do anything. Here's the thing, member experiences live on. They live on in their minds, they live on in their hearts. So if they have a difficult experience with you, they're going to tell people about it. If they have a fantastic experience with you, they're also going to tell people about it. This picture first appeared at least 8 years ago, and I had no problem finding this again for this presentation. It's on Google, it's never going to go away. I'm sure whoever owns that diner is really happy that they don't have their name listed of who that diner is, because that would be very, very embarrassing for them. But now think about that for our staff. Think about that experience that they're creating, and could that live on? That's not something that we want to do. Let's look at the next slide, because step one in creating this experience is to set minimum service standards. What do I mean by minimum service standards? It's things like, how many times does the phone ring before I answer it? Do I let the phone ring twice, 3 times? Do I just let it keep ringing? Because let me tell you what, if someone is calling the SACO and that phone rings incessantly and everyone's too busy to answer it, the feeling on the other end of the line is, maybe I have the wrong number because it feels like there's no one home at my SACO. I know they're open. I know this is during working hours. Why aren't they answering? Even if the member that you're waiting on has to have a little step back and you say, you know what, let me find out if I can get this member's phone number and call them back so that I can come back and be with you 100%. That is a tactic that works really well, because not only does that member in front of you know that they're important, they also know that any other member is also important. The other service standard to consider, so that's the first thing to write down, is how many times does a phone ring before you answer it? How do you answer the phone? Do I say, this is Angela, what do you need? I hope not. I hope it's a very proud greeting about your SACO and that you're here to help. Those things need to be written down. The next thing is, how long should an email go before it gets answered? Does that email sit there for 2 or 3 days? Or is someone getting back to that member the same day? Even if that response is, I need to look into this more for you, I will be back in touch with you tomorrow or in 2 days, just giving a time frame. And that's the important thing for all of these interactions that we're having with our members. Members expect prompt service, but what they expect more is prompt attention. And there's a difference between attention and service. Attention means you've acknowledged that I'm here and that I'm waiting. Attention means you've heard my need. Service means you let me know how long is it going to take. If I take my car in for service, I don't expect the mechanic to drop everything and to run outside and crawl under my car right that second. No, I expect to have someone greet me and say, we're going to take a look at your car after this one. It will take approximately this long. And then they come back and check with me later and they say, this is how long it's going to take to fix your car. So that's the same type of courtesy that we want to instill in our members, or for our members rather. So that's our third thing. How long should a member have to wait before someone steps up to help? So those are 3 very basic service standards. The number of times the phone rings, actually it's 4. Number of times the phone rings, how do I answer the phone? How long before a member email goes before being responded to? And number 4, how long should a member have to wait before someone either acknowledges them or actually steps up to help them? Here's the thing, that becomes a documented process. That becomes number 2. When I say, these are the things that I expect you to do, it becomes a process that helps the staff know what's expected of them. And it helps them know what's expected from each position within the SACO. These can be used to train new staff. These can be used to reinforce the service standards for other staff members as well. And managers can use these to coach the staff. So if I get a feeling that something's not right and you're not doing your job well, is it because you're messing up your transactions and you're not balancing your drawer or any of the things that need to happen financially? That's one set of issues, but there's a whole nother set of issues about that member experience. It's really, really easy for me to coach to that member experience if I have service standards like that in place. And that then allows me to define my goals in a way that everyone can understand. My goal is, even on a very busy day with lots of traffic in the lobby, that I answer the phone within 3 rings. If the phone is now ringing off the hook, it means I didn't meet my goal for that day. So what do I do differently tomorrow to meet that goal? It becomes a very easy process of, here's the process, here's what's expected of me, did I do it or didn't I do it? So the very basic levels is to maintain personal responsibility to serve that member, and answer member requests within a certain number of hours, days, minutes. Maybe it's even a service standard for how long it will take for you to approve a loan. How many hours, days will it take you to approve a loan, and how do you communicate that back to the member? All of those become parts of your process in serving your members and creating that phenomenal experience for the member. So yeah, let's go ahead and go on then, Mo. Okay, when we talk about member engagement, I haven't said the word sales at all yet, because really it's about serving the member at the highest level that we can possibly serve them. And when we do that, we are going to create a pull from members and that trust from members that they're going to come to us with their financial needs and concerns because they know that they can trust us to help them. It's not about selling a product. It's about providing them with advice and instruction about their financial needs, guiding them, giving them suggestions on what needs to happen, giving them help when they need it, whether that's in the form of a loan or in the form of how I can make my payments, counseling them. Financial counseling, like Mark talked about last week, is so important to creating that trust with your member. Providing recommendations as to what products work best for them, what kind of loan might work best for them. I look at some of the credit unions in the United States, they're doing automobile loans that have 8 and 10-year repayment terms. Now, I don't know about you, but for us, cars don't tend to be on the road for 10 years. So why would you give someone a loan for something that's not going to last as long as the loan? It doesn't make sense to me. So recommending to them that maybe if this loan is going to take you 10 years to pay off for this car, maybe it's not the right car for you. Maybe we need to look at something more affordable. And then caution. I look at caution because I have something near and dear to my heart. The year that my father passed away, I was not at peace with it for quite a while. And I went out and bought a new car, a shiny red car. Now, it wasn't a new car, it was a used car. And I went to my brother, who was a banker, not a credit union, sorry about that. And I asked him, how much would he loan me for that car? And he told me, based on the year, based on the shape that it was in, he told me what he would loan me. Well, the car at the dealership was much more expensive than that. And I said, well, I can't afford this car then if you can't give me a loan for the full amount. And he said, then don't buy the car. Well, I was upset. I was stubborn. I was the little sister. I was going to show him. So I went to the credit union and I said, how much will you loan me for this car? And they said, what is it priced at? I told them, and they said, well, then that's what we're going to loan you. It was twice the amount that that car was worth. Within several months, that car broke down. I put a lot of money into fixing it, and I sold it for literally what it was worth. And I had a debt hanging over my head for many years that made me very sad because my credit union, my SACO in your area, didn't give me that caution. They didn't say to me, you know what, this might not be the best time to make this major financial decision. They didn't give me counsel and they didn't give me caution. So you owe it to your members, even though it feels like maybe you're being mean to them, you're not. You're not. You're being a trusted advisor to them. So let's move on. When we talk about a member-focused conversation, we are shifting the limited time that we have with our members. So if you take a look at the left-hand side of your screen, you will see that about 40% of the time is spent on the process itself. You'll see that weird color that's at the top. It's sort of a reddish brownish, I don't know. 50% of the time is in yellow. That's talking about our products and our services. 5% of the time in dark red is on the member. 5% of their time in bright red is on wrapping up. So that is a very product focused approach. I'm spending half of my time talking about all the products and all the wonderful things about my SACO. Now, if I shift my time with that member and I look at that right-hand circle, I'm still taking 40% of my time with that weird red color, that whatever, tannish, reddish, whatever, with the process. So I'm not looking at shortening processes yet, but I'm spending, look at that dark red at the top, 25% of my time is spent with the member. And that allows me to reduce the time that I spend talking about my products from 50% to 20% because I know exactly what this member needs, because I've had the time to get to know them. I've taken the time to ask the right questions to know what kind of counsel and advice they really need. And then I spend 15% of my time with the wrap up, that bright red. Here's why I'm going to be spending so much more of my time in the wrap-up. If all I'm doing on the product side is spending 5% of my time, all I'm doing is saying, here's a summary of the transaction we did. Thank you for coming to your SACO today. Have a nice day. It's very, very short. If I take that time though, if I shift that time to work with my member, I'm getting to know them much better. Think about going on a date. I want to see that member again. So I want to take extra time at the end of that conversation, the end of that transaction, and find out, when will I get to see you again? So if I go on a date with somebody and I say to that somebody, oh, you are my destiny, you are my soulmate, I see stars whenever I look into your eyes, am I really going to walk away and say, see ya? No, no, my friends, you want to engage that person and you want to say, this seems to be such a strong relationship. I want to see you again. When will you next visit the SACO? What can we talk about next? What can we talk about that's going to help toward your financial future? That's why we're going to take more time if we are member focused in that wrap up phase than if we're product focused. Making sure you know when that next date with that member is. And that date could be a phone call, it could be an email, it could be face to face. You just need to have a plan that's agreed upon by you and the member to say, this is an important relationship to me. I care about you. I care about your financial well-being. So when will we talk again? When do you think your situation might change? When do you want to touch base with me again so we can do more counseling and talk more about what's going on? So think about for yourself, do you feel like you're more product focused or more member focused? One of the ways that you can become more member focused is asking good questions. So let's take a look at that next slide. When we are building a relationship with a member, it's like building a relationship when you go on a date. We can't dive into their deepest, darkest concerns about their finances. It's very difficult for people to talk about their financial situation. They could be embarrassed because they feel like they don't have enough money or they don't have control over their money. It could be a feeling that, boy, at my age, I really should know more about money, but I just don't. There's a lot of reasons that people want to keep that information private. So when you're building a relationship, we're going to use these 3 steps. You're going to uncover their immediate needs. Why did you come into the SACO today? Thinking back, there's only 3 reasons they're coming in. It's a brand new member wanting to talk about the SACO and how they can best serve. It's an existing member coming in for an interaction about an existing product or getting a new product, or it's someone coming in with a problem. So you need to uncover that immediate need, absolutely. Secondly, then, you need to uncover their next level needs. You need to find out what else is going on with this member that will help me fully understand their financial situation. Then thirdly, we want to make sure that we're using member-focused questions. Rather than asking a lot of yes/no questions, we ask questions that start with what, why, how, and tell me. So it could be, tell me about why you came in today. It could be, tell me about what the rest of your day looks like. There's a lot of ways that you can open up that initial conversation to build that relationship. Luckily, I have given you a lot of examples. So let's look at a brand new member and some of the questions that we might ask them. Whoops, did we skip over one? Mo, can you go back? There we go. So when you are uncovering someone's immediate needs, your first question is going to be, what brought you in today? That's just natural. What brought you in today? Because you need to know why they need to see you. Do they need cash? Do they need to deposit cash? Do they need to make a payment? If you don't serve that basic immediate need, there's no point in going further. There's no point in trying to dive deeper into anything else that they need. If you are talking to a new member, you would ask them, how did you hear about us? So every member gets question number one, what brought you in today? Then, how did you hear about us is the next question. This is really helpful because if they were referred to you by a friend or a family member, you want to be able to thank that person. You want to be able to say, you know what? I know that word of mouth is getting out about our SACO and how successful we can be, and we can thank our members because they're talking about us. Or if it's about, I just was in the neighborhood and I saw your sign, whatever it is you want to know. What made you interested in checking out our SACO? Tell me about your current accounts and share your financial goals with me. These are all very important questions to uncover those new members' immediate needs. This is not going to be something that you can do on a very first visit. Tell me about your current accounts and what made you interested in checking us out, number 3. And number 4, tell me about your current accounts. That's about as far as you're going to get on that brand new member. But when you set up that follow-up date, that follow-up appointment, that's why you use number 5. You say, I want to learn more about your financial goals. So let's set up a time to talk in the future. So let's look at some more questions that we might ask on that next slide. If I don't know this member well, or again, if it's a brand new member, I might want to know some of these things. And you'll see that again, they start with what and tell me about. Tell me about is going to get someone talking, we hope. So what part of town do you live in? I want to know whether that person is renting their home. And number 2, tell me about your home. Is it big enough for your family? Maybe you have a goal of moving into a larger home. Maybe you have a goal of putting a room on your home to accommodate someone that's moving in with you. Maybe there's a parent that needs to move in with you. Tell me about your work. They're going to share with you if they're out of work, right? Don't assume that they're out of work. Tell me about your work, and they will share what they do, how they do it. If they're proud of what they do, they will share with you what their current work situation is. And then tell me about your family. Is the family growing? Is the family getting older to the point where I need to maybe consider going to school, maybe going on to the university? All of those things are cues for you as a SACO to say, if you're going to add on to your home, maybe the SACO can help. If you've lost your job, maybe the SACO can help. If you've gotten a promotion at work, maybe the SACO can help with extra savings and other things like that. Tell me about your family. If you're growing your family, maybe the SACO can help. If someone's going off to university, the SACO can help. So that's why we're asking these questions, because it's all about the SACO can help. All right, so let's look at the last set of questions. This is all about that. This is about the new relationship again. I'm sorry, my slides are a little out of order in my mind. So again, this is about access to the SACO. What do you like about any current accounts? What things do you want to make sure you do? And what are things that you hope we don't do? And how do you like to access your accounts? If they don't like the fact that they can't access their accounts electronically and you have an amazing app, that gives you all kinds of opportunity to talk about how the technology at your SACO cannot be beat, that it's amazing. Then again, if they say they need to access their account electronically and you don't have an app, that tells you that maybe there's something you can't meet with this member and you need to have an honest conversation about how they can access their accounts. So let's keep going because you'll have all of these questions to read and study and look at. Okay, so here's our existing relationship questions. Again, this is for people that you know well, but do you know their financial situation well? Number one, tell me about your top 3 financial priorities. Is it paying off a loan? Is it saving some money? Is it building something on your house? Is it building a room on your house? Number 2, what are your plans for housing in the future? If you're renting, do you want to buy? If you're renting a small place, do you want a big place? All of those types of needs. Number 3, we talked about this one. What plans do you have for your children? Is college in their future? If they're going to university, how are they going to pay for that? And are they expecting you to help? And then that last question is gold. How can we best help you with your long-term plans? So you'll get access to these slides. You'll have access to these questions to be able to have your staff use them in the future. They're very, very powerful, but they have to be practiced in a safe space. So you might be able to have some conversations with your staff where they're testing these one-on-one with each other before they talk to members about them. So let's look ahead to the next slide. Having standards, having service standards for your staff is so important for you as a manager. It's something that is going to help you with feedback and with coaching to ensure that the minimum standards are being achieved. The employee's performance evaluation is critical when you're coaching them to things that they know what's expected of them. If they have no idea what's expected of them, it makes it very difficult for them to really understand what are the services that I'm supposed to provide, what are the processes I'm supposed to follow, and what do you expect of me of product knowledge. So managers are going to provide that specific, timely feedback. They're not going to stand over your shoulder and be with you every transaction like the beautiful smiling women in our photo, but they're going to be there to listen. They're going to be there to get the best out of their staff, the best out of their employees. Now, coaching is a topic that takes a while to learn and to master. It's something that that we're not going to go into today because it can take a long time. But one of the things that you can take away from this is looking at those consistent standards, those consistent service standards and service skills and processes that can be coached to. All right, let's go to the next slide because this one, my friends, I think is the most important slide that we can talk about. This is the effectiveness equation. This is how effective your staff is. This is how effective you are at coaching your staff. The A in this scenario stands for activities. The E in this scenario stands for effectiveness, and the R stands for results. Now, very often in SACOs, as in credit unions, we look for results. How many loans did we make? How many new accounts did we open? Are the loans getting paid on time? What are our payments looking like? If you coach to results, if all you're talking to your staff about is results, they're going to have no idea how to get there. It's like putting up a sign in the break room that says, sell more, do more, be better. That doesn't do it. They need to know what activities they need to do, the A. They need to know how to do it effectively, the E. So if they have their service standards, the activity will be, I will pick up the phone within 2 rings. That's an activity. I will use the member's name at least twice in every conversation. That's an activity. I will answer every email within a certain amount of time. That's an activity. I will ask open-ended questions that get to know the member better and build a relationship with them. That's an activity. So when you're observing your staff, if you're not hearing them use the questions that you want them to use to get to know that member better and build that relationship, you know that you've got an opportunity to coach to activities. Are they asking the questions of the right members at the right time? Are they doing the things you expect them to do? The E then is how effectively they're doing them. So if you say you need to greet each member as they come in the SACO, when they open that door with how are you today? And a smile, and they say, how are you today? That's not effective, my friends. That is not effective. So you can coach to them about not only that activity, but how effectively they're doing it. Do they have the right attitude? Do they have the right skills in their processes? Because if they're doing the right activities and they're doing them effectively and they're talking to enough members, your results will come. This equation is used for coaching. This equation is used for staff to understand what's expected of them. It's easy to coach to, it's easy to observe, and it's easy to measure. I could talk about this particular slide for an hour all by itself. So Maureen, let's go to the next slide. So what we've talked about is that the staff is the one that's going to create your member experience, and that you are the one as the manager to create that employee experience. And then lastly, focusing on the right activities, the right questions, the right way to approach our members, and how they're effectively executed, that's going to give us the best results. What questions can I answer for you?
Okay, so maybe as they prepare for the questions, Angela, we want to thank you so much for the detailed presentation. We've learned so much. On my end, I think key points is that member experience goes hand in hand with employee experience. If we want to have happy employees, happy clients, then the employees should also be happy. And this entails constant training and coaching, and from time to time they should check, did I do this right? Where should I improve? And with time they're going to improve, and finally the members will feel that they're part of the happy family. So as we
Yes.
wait for the questions, we had prepared some poll questions. Let's just look at those. We'll take a few minutes to answer this. So the first poll question, I hope you can all see it on your screen. We can take a few minutes to respond to that. In the meantime, once you're done, let's take time to ask questions so that after this session, we know how to treat our members better and our employees as well. So just a few minutes to respond to the poll questions. So good customer experience most significantly contributes to A, low loan delinquency, B, member retention, C, higher surplus, D, membership growth. Let's see what you have to say.
Maureen, can I say all of the above?
Yeah, sure. Sure. So let's go to the second poll question. The second poll question is, at what level are members involved in product design? At what level are members involved in product design? What point do you involve your members? Is it during AGMs? Is it at the development stage, or you never involve your members? Let us know at what stage you involve them. And as a reminder, let's ask questions so that Angela can respond to them. And eventually we know how to treat our members better. Just a few seconds to respond to the poll. And then Sharon will help us go through the responses once we are all done. Okay, so Sharon, are you able to see the responses?
Okay, I see the response to the second question, which read, at what level are members involved in product design? 18% felt that it's during the AGMs. 68% responded at development stage, and 14% said that members are not involved at all. So just going through what Angela has shared and generally our views, it's my belief that as we engage members at every level of product design, then obviously we are creating a much better buy-in, meaning that we are producing products that speak specifically to their needs, and therefore the products are likely to serve and address some of the problems they have. Remember, the problems are what then results to products, other than having products on the shelf that literally do not move. So again, it speaks to what Angela was saying, that then the member is at the center of everything that we do. For the products to make sense to the members, then obviously when they're involved, we get better results. And I'm quite impressed that 68% of us have involved our members, meaning that their voices have been captured, and then therefore the solutions that we give them make sense. It would be interesting to note that 14% of us do not involve our members, and I believe that is an area that we need to explore as leaders, as managers that are here today, obviously because there's a strong correlation between membership buy-in and the growth of the circle and the stability of the circle. So I believe this is a learning point for all of us. Next question, Maureen. Okay, so it looks like, yes, okay, there. So the other question was, good customer experience most significantly contributes to what? According to some of us, membership retention and membership growth actually tied in at 46%. Whereas 4% felt that, well, it could, to a small percentage, tie into low delinquency as well as high surplus. So it's interesting that these two sets of questions scored the same, but I indeed agree with the 46% that say that, yes, customer experience, which pretty much speaks to the journey that the customer enjoys from the time they walk into our branches to the time they leave. That whole experience obviously contributes to us a high percentage of how the customer will view us over and beyond when they're out of our branches. So yes, it speaks to customer retention and obviously growth, because growth then is a result of the word of mouth that these customers will then share with the rest of the community. So again, whereas low loan delinquency speaks to the loyalty that we will get from our customers and probably how sympathetic they are towards paying our loans well, good customer care obviously speaks to retention, and some of these things like surplus and delinquency are like a third or a fourth level outcome out of it. And maybe at this point, I would just like to invite Angela to share her comments, especially on this last question and how we responded. That customer experience, obviously at a high degree, relates to member retention and membership growth.
Thank
Back
you,
to
Grace.
you, Angela.
Yes, thanks, Grace. So I feel I kind of blew it because when the poll question came up, I said, can I answer all 4 of them? Because I feel that really that member experience does impact all 4 of these items. Members are more likely to stay with us if they're having a good experience. So that's member retention for sure. And membership growth, members are more likely to tell their friends and family and neighbors and whoever they know, if someone is saying, I need a SACO that can serve me, like who I'm going to now, it certainly plays into membership growth because a happy member is much more likely to give a referral to your organization, to your SACO. So membership growth definitely depends on the member experience. And as Grace alluded to, low loan delinquency, really it does have an effect on the member experience, really does have an effect. We have experience with SACOs in Africa, and by we I mean Lois, working with folks to make sure that they understand that a good member pays their loans. So if I treat you well, you treat me well. And if I refuse to make loan payments, you're not treating me well. If I, on the other hand, prioritize my loan payments with the SACO, that means that I am being a good member. So I believe it goes hand in hand that if you are treating your members well, that they will grow trust and that relationship will grow so that they will make sure that they find a way to pay their loans. There's a story from a credit union in the United States where a collector had been working with an older gentleman, and he had always made sure that he was paying his loans on time. And all of a sudden, he stopped coming into the credit union. He stopped paying, and the collector was kind of shocked and kind of surprised because this member had been in good standing. He wasn't wealthy by any means, but he had made sure that he paid his loans to the credit union. And it was months that this collector was leaving messages and sending letters, and everything was getting a little more heated. Well, finally, the older gentleman's daughter came into the credit union and she had tears in her eyes, and she said, I just want you to know how much the credit union meant to my father. He passed away. He's been sick for the last several months, so that's why you haven't seen him here, and I had to take over his finances. And he said to me, make sure that you take care of the credit union because they've always taken care of me. So he was foregoing medication and he was foregoing some other things in his life to make sure that he was paying his credit union loan back. Now, we don't want members to be in that kind of a situation ever, but we do want our members to feel like they can trust us enough to share when they're having difficulties and to share when they're about to go delinquent. Once someone has stopped paying their loans, it's almost too late, because we have to be able to create a safety net for them. We have to be able to know their situation well enough that that everyday conversation that we have with a member when they come in, it goes beyond how are you today? It goes into how is your job going? How are things with your family? Because you need to know ahead of time that things are not looking good at my job. I'm still working, but I don't know for how much longer. Well, you know what? Let's sit down and talk about this, because I think the credit union, I think the SACO can help. So proactively talking to our members will create a situation where you have lower loan delinquency when you've got that trust built with your members.
Okay, thank you, Angela. Now we have a couple of questions for you. The first one would be from Judith, Cameroon. She's asking, how often do you think employees should be evaluated?
That is a fantastic question, Judy. You know, there was a time when I would have said an annual evaluation was enough, I guess you could say. I sincerely believe that every time you sit down with your member, it becomes an opportunity to do a bit of an evaluation. So there shouldn't be one big evaluation at the end of the year or on that employee's hire anniversary date. If I'm meeting with my staff, I should be meeting them with them one-on-one at a minimum on a monthly basis. And at that minimum monthly basis, we should be able to have a conversation about how are things going for you. Not only are you meeting your goals, but am I doing what I need to do to make sure you can be the most effective you are at your job? We found situations where something as simple as moving a printer to a more centrally located area made a huge difference in how staff was able to serve their members most effectively. And we wouldn't have known that if we hadn't asked the questions. So Judy, rather than sitting down with them once a year and having a laundry list of, you know, in January you did this, in February you did this, and now it's December, they won't remember those things. And the only reason you remember them is because you wrote them down. So it's much more effective to say, you know what, I just overheard that conversation you had with that member. You did a fantastic job saying this. Next time, consider saying this to get to whatever the result is that you're going for. So an ongoing conversation, I think, is much more powerful than having that once a year conversation with them. I hope that helps.
Thanks, Angela. So the next question is from Botswana by Kohala. Does increase in salaries effectively bring about better results, i.e. more members joining and or increase in savings or loan uptake?
So does paying this, is it paying the staff more or higher? Read the beginning of the question again, I'm sorry.
Okay. It says, does increase in salaries effectively bring about better results?
So salary.
i.e. more members joining and increase in savings or loans.
Increasing salaries of the staff may be something that makes them happy in the short term. But as long as people have enough money to live on, there's sort of a point of diminishing returns where paying them more isn't going to make as big of a difference as you think it will. So I don't believe that there is a direct correlation between how much we pay our staff and how successful our credit union is. I think that if we look at creating a team atmosphere where everyone knows that they can support each other and they work to support each other, that is a more effective way to make sure that the employee experience is where you need it to be. Now, that being said, if your staff does not have a salary that's allowing them to have a proper living situation, that's a different story altogether. We often get into conversations about incentives and paying bonuses and paying staff for selling more or for having more products or for meeting their goals. I think that's a slippery slope. I really do. I think that having the staff know that you will be paid a living wage, a good salary for doing a good job, that's more powerful to me than giving them an incentive for selling another loan or for closing another loan. When you talk about incentives for individual products, that can really be dangerous because staff then sees every member as an opportunity to earn more money for themselves, as opposed to I see an opportunity to make life better for my members. And really that's the goal, is to make life better for your members as opposed to me personally. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Angela. The other question is from Sally, Kenya. She wants to know, as a manager, how do you make sure employees' objectives do not hamper the delivery of a great member experience? The example she gave is probably a collector is not being empathetic due to their targets. I hope you get the question.
I did. Thank you very much. And hi, Mama Sally. When you're talking about a collector, there's a very different set of training skills and set of expectations that you have for a collector. When you are collecting, it is imperative that that staff person understands that the member is still at the heart of what's going on for the credit union, and that their job really is to make sure that the member understands that good members pay their loans. That's something I learned from Lois a long, long time ago. We love our members and our members love us, and good members pay their loans. So if we're talking about foregoing, a good member experience doesn't always mean I'm nice, if that makes sense. A bigger smile doesn't mean a better member experience. It's really about making sure that you're giving them, think back to the slide about the coaching and counseling. So if we can get the collectors to be more of that coach and counsel with our members, that's an experience that the members will still appreciate. So even if it's a situation where I'm delinquent, if you sit down with me and you help me understand how I can get out of a mountain of debt, if you can give me that kind of coaching and guidance and counsel, I will love you for life. That is the best lesson that you can give me as a member. How can I budget? How can I make sure that all of my bills are paid? How can I make it by on the meager salary that I make? If you teach me that skill, I am going to be yours for life. And when we're looking at the member experience, we know that if a member has a negative experience with our SACO or with any business, it's not about what happens with that negative experience. It's, can you turn that negative experience into a positive? Because if you can show that member that you truly, truly care about their situation, that's when you really get loyalty. That's when you make a difference in your member's life. So it's not just about smiling and saying please and thank you. It's really about giving that coaching and counseling and guidance to make sure that member is successful in the long run. That's when they're going to love you. And if you think about it, it's like raising children. At some point, you might need to give that kid a smack on the butt. At least sometimes. You just have to, because what they're doing is not good for them. It's dangerous. And in the moment, that child will be frustrated with you, but in the long run, they'll understand, oh, running in the street is not a good idea. I need to make sure there's no cars coming. And the member may in the moment feel like, oh, I'm kind of frustrated with the SACO because they're making me pay my loan, but in the long run, they'll learn the lesson of financial responsibility.
Thanks, Angela. This next one, the question is, normally it is difficult to get a balance between business focus and member focus. And business focus in this case is profitability. What could be a practical way of looking at this? And how do we convince the board in this case? This is a question from Fumbani, Malawi.
Okay, that is a fantastic question. If we go back to that equation that I showed, that A times E equals R, that is going to be a great way to explain to your board and to your staff what's expected. So you can't just flip a light switch and say, we're not going to focus on results anymore. Yeah, your board will say, thank you very much for your time here. I'm inviting you to seek your happiness elsewhere. That's not going to work. So you do still need to focus on profitability and results. At the same time, letting the board know that educating your staff, using some of the Accosca webinars, using some of the things that you've got available to you, making sure that they understand what goes into that member experience and what are the activities and the questions that need to be asked. That may create a very, very different experience for your members than what they're used to, and that's a good thing. As long as it remains in a positive light, as long as it remains moving that conversation and the relationship forward, that's all you can ask for, and that's really all your board can ask for. Selling to products and selling to that bottom line gets you in trouble every time. I don't know if you know of Wells Fargo, the big giant mega bank, but Wells Fargo got into a lot of trouble because their staff was so afraid to not close loans and to not add extra products when they close loans that they don't have members, they have customers. Customers found themselves in loans they didn't want to need, in products that they didn't want and need, and it got Wells Fargo in a lot of trouble. So that's a word of caution to your board that when you drive to profit, you're no longer acting like a credit union. You're no longer acting like a SACO. You need to drive to that positive member and positive employee experience, and the results will come. It's a huge shift, though. You've nailed that question, that it is a huge shift to be able to say we are going to focus on the right activities with the right members at the right time in their life, and we're going to focus on doing those activities effectively, very, very well, and we know those results will come. But it will happen. So show them A times E equals R, and that will help with that discussion overall.
Thank you so much, Angela. Benson Kilonzi from Kenya wants to know what gives the highest employee satisfaction for better service to members.
You know, I think that's a fantastic question. Each employee is going to be slightly different. Whenever I have an employee that I'm supervising, I start off by giving them a mini survey. We sit down and we one-on-one talk about what are the things that motivate you? What are the things that drive you? What are the things that really make you happy in your job and your position? Those are the things then that you can customize to that particular person. For some people, all they would like to create a better experience for themselves is that you recognize them to other staff and you say, Maureen did such a fantastic job getting these webinars off the ground in a very short period of time. Maureen, hats off to you. Grace has done an amazing, amazing job at making sure that the introductions are done and that the conversation flows and the questions are done well during our webinars. Amazing job. Thank you, Grace, for all your hard work. For some employees, that means so much to them. Some employees may want you to write them a note because they're too embarrassed to be called out in front of all the staff. Some employees may like to know that you figured out that they really like a certain kind of treat and you brought that treat in for them one day when they did a very, very good job. But the only way you're going to know that is by asking them, what are the things that mean the most to you? It could mean that they get to get off an hour early one day, an hour off for good behavior. No, but it's a thank you that they get to go home an hour early, or they get to have more flexible hours. So there's a lot of things that you can do for your staff that create a positive experience that don't involve paying them more money. It's just getting creative about how it is that we thank our staff, and it's about asking them what they want. And I've had folks tell me, well, Angela, I just can't go and ask my staff what they want. I've never asked them before. They would think I was crazy. No, they wouldn't think you were crazy. They would think, wow, my manager really cares about what I want. And that training that they're going through really must be helping. So you can just put down on a piece of paper their name, their date, what are their favorite treats? What music do they like to listen to? How do they most want to be recognized, in public or in private? Write them a handwritten note and mail it to their house. Because guess what? They're going to show their whole family. They're going to show everyone that they know, look at how much my manager loves me and appreciates me. It's not just about the money.
Okay, thanks for that, Angela. So this is both a compliment and a question at the same time. It's from Jeanette, Botswana, and she says, good lesson, thanks to Angela. Yes, it takes enough member education to build member relationship. Without this, some members will feel offended and feel you're encroaching into their personal space. With those questions. So with those questions, I believe it's the member questions that you'd shared earlier, Angela. So what's your take? Would you feel that members would feel offended, and how would you handle that?
That is a fantastic question. So what I would say is that you can't rush the relationship. So even though I have all of those questions listed slide after slide, you would never sit down with a member and go, question number 1, number 2, number 3. You would never do that. You let that relationship build over time. So it would be the equivalent of me. I like the dating analogy for some reason. It seems to make sense because it's building a relationship, right? So if I went out for coffee with someone and I found them attractive and we seem to have good chemistry, we seem to get along very well. When I leave that coffee, would I say, hey, I really like you, will you marry me? No, that's not how it works for me. I want you to, first we go for coffee, then maybe we go for lunch, then maybe next week we go to a movie or we go for dinner. So there's some courtship that goes on in dating. There's some courtship that goes on with your members. So if you are having a discussion with a member and you've never sat down and talked to them before, you're not going to ask them those personal questions. You are not going to say, what are your top 3 financial goals? That's a pretty advanced question that you're going to save once you've had a couple of conversations with them. So you have to build that trust and that relationship over time with your members. And you need to have a way that you're going to be able to track those conversations as well, and be able to reach out proactively and say, you know what, we're having a great conversation, but I haven't seen you in a while. Would you like to come in and we can talk about the next step in your financial relationship? So think about that. Over time, you're going to get more intimate, if you will, about their financial situation. Now, I don't know what the situation is in Africa, but I can say in the US, people would rather tell you about anything else. They would rather tell you about medical problems. They would rather tell you about, you name it, they would rather tell you about anything else than their financial situation. It's hard, it's difficult for people to talk to us about that. So you have to ease your way into it and you have to build that relationship. That's a fantastic question though. Thanks for asking.
Thank you, Angela. Finally, a comment from Lois and a question as well. She says, sometimes you have to say no to really help the members, but how do you tell a member you can't have a loan?
That is a great question. And it may be that it's not a no, but it's a not right now. And you have to explain to the member why it is that you're saying no. I'll go back to a child analogy. If a child is screaming for a toy and there's just no way that you can afford that toy right now, you have to say there will come a time when you may get that toy, but it's not going to be right now. So if you think about Mark's financial counseling webinar last week, he really talked about working with that member and making sure that they're in good standing. So explaining to the member why right now is not a good time for that loan, that it's not a good investment for the credit union, and that maybe you're issuing them caution as well, because like my car story, it's not a good investment for you to make to buy that car right now. So let's talk about how else the credit union might help you. Let's talk about when we can come back together. How can we work on a budget together? How can we work on some other spending that you might be having to get you to the point where we're both confident in your ability to repay this loan, and we're both confident that this loan is truly going to help you in the long run. So it's not about immediacy, it's about what is my relationship with you like for the long run. Your SACO has been there for years, probably decades, and it's gonna be here for decades more. The last thing you want is to make a snap decision and then have that hurt both the member and the credit union. So it could be maybe it's no for now, no right now, but we're gonna work together and come back and work with me. Great question.
Okay, thank you. That was the last question from the audience. So just to conclude, I think we've all learned one thing. It starts with the managers to the employees to ensure the employees are in the right state to serve the members, and eventually the members will be happy and will all be a happy family. I would just like to mention thank you everyone for attending this session. We had our executive director attending as well, and the Accosca board and Accosca Foundation as well. As I said earlier, we've lined up such nice sessions. You see, we've learned so much from today's session, and we have more lined up. On the screen, you'll see the next session, that's next week. On Tuesday, we'll have Katie Zaleski speaking to us about recruiting and retaining talented staff to grow the SACCO business model. So this, the link will definitely be on our social media sites and our website as well. So look out for this to register in good time so that we continue benefiting at these times that we can hardly meet. But thanks to the technology, we are able to still continue learning. Thank you so much, and see you next week. Bye.